So I wanted to talk to you guys today about where I've been for the past month or longer. The story is basically that my van got stolen. And I decided to make this video because I think there's a lot of lessons that I've learned throughout the past 2 weeks of dealing with this whole nightmare situation. And for anyone who does van life, I think that this video could potentially be very helpful for you. So a little bit of backstory. I bought my van in July 2020 and I went with a GMC Safari cargo van. So bought the van, immediately went down the road, bought a steering lock for the van, bought a pedal lock for the van, and I was away. So, I'm not a full-time van lifer, but I definitely take a lot of weekend trips in my van. I go out to state parks, I go out to, campgrounds, BLM land, all that kind of stuff. And when my van was stolen, I was just kind of stunned, honestly. I just was stunned. So I want to talk about what happened that led to the van getting stolen. And then I want to talk about some lessons that I've learned and what I would do differently and when I buy another van. So it all started when I drove my van to work like I do every day. I work at a hospital and I do close to 13-hour shifts. So I parked in the car park, the surface car park, went into work, worked my 13-hour shift in the ICU, came out at the end of my shift and my van was gone. And I don't know, it's funny. I think that as humans, when something happens that we don't like, we kind of go into denial mode. And I remember walking out to the car park and my van was very clearly not there. And my brain just sort of like tipped over sideways and freaked out for a minute and then had to like reboot itself, and it kind of rebooted itself back up. And I was like, nope, my van is still not there. And my co-worker and friend who had parked next to me that morning was standing in the car park and he turns to me and goes, oh my God, I think your van's been stolen. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. I think my van's been stolen. There was a coat lying on the ground where the van had been parked, just random new looking coat, just lying on the ground. And that was it. The van had apparently apparated. So call hospital security, they come running out and I tell them the situation. I go to call the police and I realize, and I'm mortified at this, and we'll get into this later, but I realize that in the panic of everything, I can't remember my license plate number. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna call the police and the first thing they're gonna ask for is the freaking license plate number, and I don't know it. It's like I know it, but in my state of panic, I just can't, my brain is not wanting to remember what it is. So I'm thinking, well, what am I gonna do? I need to call the police to file a report in order to contact insurance to get the ball rolling, and I can't call the police because what am I gonna say? My van's stolen, I don't know the number plate. So I'm thinking about this and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to go home and find the paperwork with the license plate, And then all of a sudden it occurs to me, oh my gosh, I probably have a photo on my phone that has my van's license plate on it somewhere, right? This whole situation at this point is already ridiculous. I can't remember the one thing that I need to remember in this situation. So I start looking through my phone and I'm finding all sorts of pictures of my van, but most of them either don't have the license plate in it or I've blurred it out because it's a photo that I might have posted somewhere and I didn't want the license plate visible. So I keep scrolling and I keep scrolling and eventually I find a photo that has my license plate on it. Yes! So it's now been 20 minutes, call the police, file it as stolen. They're like, great, okay, we'll send an officer out, we'll get a statement, we'll get the ball rolling on this. I'm like, okay, great, good. Talk to the security guard some more. I'm waiting in the lobby thinking that, this police officer is gonna show up any minute to take my statement. And an hour goes by and they haven't shown up. And I call them up and they're like, yeah, sorry, it's a really busy night. We've got a lot of high priority calls. Okay, 2 hours go by, same thing. 3 hours go by. Oh, we had an officer on the way, but they got diverted to a more important call. Okay. 4 hours go by, call them up. we're so sorry, we're gonna get an officer out to you, we promise. It's been a busy night, we understand. And I said, you know, screw it, like, I've been waiting here 4 hours. And they're like, we know, we're so sorry. I said, you know, let's just do this tomorrow. You know, like, I've been sitting here for 4 hours waiting for you guys to show up. I have to be at work in 6 hours. You know, I still have to figure out how to get home. They were like, okay, that's totally fine. They said, probably chances are it'll be easier to file a report in the morning. We're not gonna have all these drunk people staggering around like at night, whatever. I was like, okay, fine, bye. So, you know, in the interim 4 hours, the security guard has managed to capture the thieves on camera. So they were captured on 3 separate cameras at the hospital's entrance and then outside the hospital. I unfortunately had parked somewhat behind an ambulance. We have a lot of ambulances in the car park. And so half of the van was obscured and half of the van was visible. And the motion sensor camera did capture the thief, or one of the 2 thieves, on the passenger side, which is the side that got smashed. And I can only imagine that the coat, which was found on the floor, they used to put across the window while they smashed it so that the glass would not fall everywhere. And I can only speculate. So I'm like, okay, great, I've got the footage. I know exactly what time the van was stolen. And what's so frustrating is it was stolen 20 minutes before I got out of work. And I was just like, grr. But what can you do? So I'm like, okay, I've got to get home now. It's midnight. I don't have a car. I call a taxi company and they're like, okay, we'll send someone out. And then a minute later, I get a text saying, we can't send someone out. We don't have any drivers that want to go out to you in your sketchy hospital at like midnight. Great. So then I'm like, okay, let me just catch the train. There's a train station 4 blocks away. You know, I'm not really thrilled about doing this at midnight in the dark as a girl, but you know, I've got to do what I've got to do. It's the only way to get home. And so I start walking, and the first thing I see when I leave my hospital is a police car just kind of cruising by, you know, no lights, doesn't seem in a particular hurry, and I'm just like, and then I walk another block and I see another police car just cruising down the road, no lights. I'm like, oh, you're really busy tonight, huh? Really? I go another block and I see a third police car. Again, no lights, no sirens, just kind of creeping down a back alley, checking out the homeless tents. And I flagged the officer down and I said, look, my car got stolen tonight. I've been waiting 4 hours to file a report. They keep telling me they're too busy. And I kind of looked at him a bit pointedly and I said, can I file a report with you? And he said, no, sorry, we're kind of busy. And I was like, what do you mean you're kind of busy? You're just crawling down an alleyway with no lights on. Like, what are you busy? Like, are you eating donuts? What are you busy doing? I don't get it. And he said, sorry, and he kind of just drove off. And I was like, oh my, Portland Police Bureau. Don't get me started. So I was like, okay, all right, well, I guess I'm just gonna like book it to the Max station before I get murdered. So I start, you know, just kind of booking it to the Max station. Next thing I know, this police car is kind of heading back towards me. And he rolls down the window and he says, you know, we had a cancellation. And I'm gonna put that in inverted commas because, you know, I can take your statement now. And I was like, okay, whatever, let's just, whatever, you know. So we pull into a supermarket car park at midnight, you know, and he's taking down all my details and, you know, he gives me a case number, which is the one thing I really needed because now I can call insurance and start reporting the claim process. Police just really didn't seem that interested. It was very like, we're just gonna do the bare minimum. I haven't had a lot of dealings with Portland Police Bureau, but I would say, you know, just based off of my dealings with them as far as vehicle theft goes, I was not left impressed. I told the officer that we had footage of the thieves, didn't really seem to care. You know, I said, you know, are you able to go pick it up? And he said, yeah, maybe. He never picked it up. It was 2 blocks away from where we were at this point, and he couldn't be bothered to go over and get the footage of a felony. Anyway, got home. At this point, you know, it took me 2 hours to get home almost. So I get home and I'm exhausted. I'm just mentally exhausted. You know, I've been waiting for 4 hours for police to show up. I've taken another 2 hours to get home, and I'm just, at this point, I'm just like so done. So I call into work and I'm like, look, I'm not coming in tomorrow. My car got nicked. And they were like, okay. You know, they were very understanding. I just crashed out in bed, woke up the next day, and then started the whole process of dealing with insurance. Now, I'm very thankful that I had comprehensive insurance, and I didn't really know the ins and outs of it, but I knew that at a very basic level, things with any luck were going to be okay. And it turned out that they were. And again, I'll talk more about that later, but insurance is really freaking important. Like, you think these sorts of things are never going to happen to you, but they can do. And you know, at this point, my van was something I really just used to commute to work, and I went on lots of weekend trips with it. I can only imagine the nightmare, I mean the freaking nightmare that could have been had I had my entire life in that vehicle. Passports, laptops, cameras, you know, electronics, clothes, you know, recreational equipment, you know, really important, just you name it, just everything, you know, and it had been stolen. You know, not only would I have lost all my personal possessions, like hello consumerism, but I would have lost a roof over my head. Like, I can't even begin to imagine having a vehicle stolen and then going, well, where do I go now? You know, literally, where do I go? What do I do? Where do I sleep? And so, yeah, just having good insurance was a decision I'm glad I made. So I'm on the phone to insurance, and you know, and basically what they're telling me is they take my statement, that what they do, I guess, I don't know if all insurance companies do this, but what my insurance company did is that they tell you you're being recorded, and then they take a statement and they schedule the statement. Like, they don't just take it, they're like, we're going to call you at this time on this day and you're going to take a statement. They record a statement, and then after that, what they basically say is, you know, depending on your policy and your company coverage and all this stuff, but they say, well, basically at this point, it's just a waiting game, right? So your vehicle's been stolen. We don't know if it's going to be recovered yet. If it gets recovered within 14 days from the date of the theft, we will go ahead and start doing the loss analysis and all that stuff, claims adjustment stuff. If it doesn't get recovered within 14 days, we'll just go ahead and kind of basically issue you the check, right? So at this point, I'm like, I don't even know whether I want it to be recovered within 14 days. Like, what kind of state is it going to be in if it's recovered? Like, you know, is it going to be better for me to get it back and get it fixed? Is it going to be better for me to just not have it back and then just get them? Like, all of these things are going through my mind, you know. Well, 6 days later, I get a call from a private number. It's a state trooper. They found my vehicle. It's at a Walmart in a suburb way outside of Portland. The thief, or well, the alleged thief, they have a suspect, let's put it that way. They have a suspect in handcuffs in the back of a police car. And they're like, can you get out here right now? And I'm like, yes. So call my friend, he comes and picks me up. We flew right out to this like suburb way outside of town, to this Walmart. Get there, and sure enough, there's my van just idling in the car park. There's state police troopers around it, and I can see just vaguely a suspect in the back of a car handcuffed. And I walk up to the car, and I'm like, oh God, this van is effed. The window, I don't know, you know what's funny is I didn't think about logistically what would have had to have happened for a thief or thieves to steal the car. I just knew it was there one minute and it wasn't there the next. And I don't know what I thought would have happened in that process, but I hadn't really thought through what might have actually happened. So here's what actually happened. The thieves smashed the passenger window. There were two of them. Smashed the passenger window. Glass everywhere. I mean, everywhere. They cut off the steering lock. So they cut the steering wheel. Somehow managed to get the steering lock off. There was a pedal lock on the accelerator. They somehow managed to not get that off, but they managed to do something to where they were able to press down on the accelerator. What's funny about this is I know for a fact that they could not have driven that vehicle at more than 20 miles an hour, because I've actually accidentally tried to drive with the pedal lock on, and it will drive, but it drives very slowly. It won't let you push down to enough depth because there's something physically between the floor and the accelerator. So I was just thinking about this and I was like, oh my God, you know, it would have been so funny if they had tried to get on I-84 and drive on the freeway to like another city or something, because they would have been pulled over within like 8 seconds for doing 20 in an 80 zone or something, you know, like, anyway, that clearly didn't happen. Apparently from what I can tell, were just pootling around town with it until it ran out of petrol. When state police pulled it over, it had no plates, it had a smashed passenger window, they had punched the ignition, damaged everything steering column related, hot-wired the car, trashed the inside, and I mean trashed the inside. Cigarette ash, drugs. The car was actually declared a complete biohazard zone, and I couldn't even look through anything to see what was mine and what was missing to fill out the loss adjustment form, because there was so much stuff from the thieves just dumped in the cab. It looked like, and I'm not going to say this definitely, I don't want to be like arrested for slander or anything, but it appeared that potentially there was a lot of stolen stuff in the car. I saw a lot of like small items that you could steal from a store that wouldn't be noticed, and no receipts. Like a lot of small electronics, charger cables. There were also a ton of power tools, drills and things like that I think they had been using to break into things or steal things. Uncapped syringe needles everywhere, just completely littering the van. Back of the van was totally effed up too. The sliding door they had completely destroyed. It wouldn't even close. I don't know how they were driving around with the door open. Back door they somehow managed to get open, despite the fact it can only be opened with a key. It's not hooked up to any of the other electronic doors. But they'd somehow managed to jam that open, and that was effed too. Yeah, again, back of the vehicle that they'd clearly been sleeping in was just trashed. They, gone through all the, I didn't have any stuff in there, but I had like empty boxes and they were just strewn around. I had a curtain hung up in the back for privacy. They'd torn that down and used it to, I don't know, where's a toga? Who the F knows? But again, you used syringe needles, hypodermic needles, just everywhere, uncapped. Food, they had a ton of ramen in the back, so again, clearly he or they were living in the vehicle. It was just like a disaster. So I'm standing there with my friend, I'm talking to state police, we do whatever we need to do, and eventually they're like, okay, we're gonna take off, we're gonna get the suspect back to jail. Like, okay, so now I'm on the phone with insurance, and insurance takes forever to pick up, and I'm just in the middle of this Walmart car park, like half blocking traffic. The van, the van has just been kind of pulled over, and just, it's not in a parking space or anything. I call up insurance and explain the situation, and they're like, okay, great. Here are your options. You can either have us arrange a tow, and they're like, we're an insurance company. I mean, they were very honest about this. They were like, we're an insurance company, we're really slow. It might take up to 2 days to get a tow truck out there. We don't know how you feel about that. You're gonna have to have the vehicle sitting there. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, oh my God, this vehicle already has a broken window. It's hot wired. Anyone could drive off with it. Like, no, that's not really an option. And insurance, like, we totally get it. So they said the other option is you can call for a tow company to come pick up the vehicle. You can have it towed. You pay the tow company, take it to a garage, like a mechanic, and we will refund you for the tow fee. And so that's what I ended up doing. Got on the phone to a tow company. They showed up within probably 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that. I'm helping the guy load the vehicle onto the tow truck, which is actually pretty fun. You get to like press the lever and everything, and And the tow truck guy, he was really lovely, but he looked at me and he goes, oh my God, your vehicle is total. And I was like, no, here am I thinking, like insurance are gonna pay, and it's just gonna be like a couple things, and they'll put a new door on and whatever with the ignition, and it's gonna be fine, and we'll get a new window. And this guy who was clearly, this is what he does for a living. He picks up trash cars all day long, and he's like, oh my God, this is like gonna be totaled. It's like, it's total loss. And I was like, so I ride with the tow truck driver, and they were very lovely at the shop, and they said, we work with insurance all the time. What's going to happen is they're going to send out a loss adjuster. He's going to look at the vehicle, he or she is going to look at the vehicle and determine, whether or not it's salvageable or whether it's just like a total loss. So that was that. I handed them the key, I said goodbye to my van, and my friend, drove me home. And at that point, it was just a question of waiting for insurance to decide what they thought they were going to do. Insurance had me fill out a theft questionnaire, and I was reimbursed very quickly for any items that were in the vehicle. Again, I wasn't living in my van, it was just a weekend kind of van. So the stuff that I had in it was pretty negligible, but it still added up. I had things like phone chargers, gosh, what else did I have? I put down the money for the steering lock and the pedal lock. I had, maps. I had, parks passes, like national park passes, state park passes, that kind of thing. And those are expensive. Cumulatively, these little things add up. So insurance reimbursed me for that very quickly. The limit for that was $200. Anything above that, you have to go through your homeowner's insurance. And then at that point, it was just a question of waiting for the loss adjuster to head out, examine the vehicle, write up the report, and decide what they wanted to do. And I got a call from the loss adjuster within a couple of days, and he had deemed the vehicle a total loss. And therefore, their recommendation is to just cut you a check for the value of the vehicle minus the deductible. And I think there's like $100 fee for something or other. I'm not quite sure what that was for. And they send you the figures and you look them over, and you can either contest the figures or you can accept the figures. And I was really worried they were going to lowball me. I was really worried. I paid over $6,000 for the vehicle, and I was like, they're going to give me like $3,000 or something ridiculous. I just know it. And it turned out I actually paid $6,300 for the vehicle. They deemed the value of the vehicle at $6,100, which really isn't too far off in the grand scheme of things. One thing I didn't think about, and again, it's because I'm not used to dealing with this, and I actually told them on the phone. It's kind of funny, they were talking to me and they're just reeling off all of this sort of terminology and lingo and everything, and I had to literally say to 3 different people on the phone, slow the F down. I know that you guys deal with this every day, but as the customer, I don't get vehicles stolen every day. I don't understand this process. You're gonna have to kind of talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old, and they laugh and they were like, yeah, we get it. Where was I? Yeah, so they sent me the paperwork with it basically sort of detailed. And if I had thought about it more, I would have argued the price only to the extent that it had a roof rack, which I know the roof racks are not cheap, and it also had interior shelving. And that doesn't come as standard with the vans. That's something that you put in afterwards. I thought about it long and hard. I would have added that to the van just to, maybe get a little bit more money back. But overall, I thought the value of the van was fair. And so I decided to go ahead and just accept the insurance company's offer. When I was agonizing over, should I just keep the vehicle and take what they're offering minus the salvage fee and repair it myself with my own money, versus should I just let them deem it a total loss and keep the vehicle? One of the things I was kind of wrestling with is, if I keep the vehicle, it's going to have a salvage title. And that's not a very desirable thing to have. It could very easily jack up my insurance rate. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. And also, if down the road, or if and when down the road I decide to sell the vehicle, it's going to be virtually impossible. Any sort of third-party selling companies refuse to take salvage vehicles. And frankly, who wants a vehicle with a salvage title? I know that when I was car shopping, I certainly didn't. My criteria were, if it doesn't have a clean title, I'm not touching it with a barge pole. In the end, like I say, I decided to just go ahead and take the check and let the insurance company keep the van. So the process for that was actually pretty seamless. My insurance company towed the vehicle from the mechanic shop to a parting out company that they apparently work with, and oh my god, this place was just chock-a-block. It was so full of trashed vehicles and It made me feel a little bit better. I was like, man, my vehicle's not the only one that's been destroyed. Apparently it was the only one that was a biohazard risk, but apparently people crash into each other a lot because there was a ton of janky, destroyed cars coming in and out of the lot. So the parting out company worked with me to just deal with everything. So they basically transfer the title over and deal with all of the DMV stuff. You don't have to deal with any of it. They deal with that and work with insurance, and that was it. Once that was done, I just emailed insurance copies of all those receipts, and within less than half an hour, they had issued me a direct deposit for the value of the vehicle. And that was that. I was now vehicleless. My van was no more. So that was the process. That was the process from start to finish. The only other addendum that I will say, and I don't want to say too much about this because this is still ongoing, but I did have to attend a grand jury because the thief was apprehended, or I should say the potential thief, I guess, was apprehended, and there's going to be a whole process going forward involving that. I'm not really going to talk about that here, but I will have to go to trial as a witness in this case. But as far as the van's concerned, yeah, you know, it's gone. And I feel like my friend was talking to me the other day, and he's like, you know, you seem remarkably sanguine about the whole experience, and I kind of have been. I mean, it is what it is. It could have been way worse. I could have been with the vehicle and I could have been attacked. I could have had every worldly possession in the vehicle when it was stolen. I don't know, there's so many other scenarios that really could have happened that could have been exponentially worse. And I'm very lucky that, you know, I had a vehicle, it was stolen, I had comprehensive insurance, I didn't have anything valuable in it, I had an insurance company that worked with me and paid out quickly, and that's that, and now I just have to go through the whole rigmarole of van shopping again. But, you know, like in the grand scheme of things, things could have been way worse. I have a deductible that I did lose out on, but whatever. But this leads me on to my second part of the video, which is, what would I do differently going forward? When I get my next vehicle, what am I going to do differently to make sure that this hopefully does not happen again? So here's what I would do differently going forward with my next van. Okay, number one, I would keep all of my documents related to the van in one file, and I would also have copies of all of them on my phone or on a cloud or on something that I could access at a moment's notice. I can be a very disorganized person, it's just part of my charm, but when it comes crunch time, it's not helpful. And, you know, having to spend 20 minutes freaking the F out about the fact that I could not remember my license plate number. It's not up to me to remember my license plate, but it sure as hell is up to me to be able to access information that can tell me my license plate, you know. And one of the things that I've really one of the things that's really clicked for me is I need to be better organized about this stuff. I can't just have piles of paperwork strewn about everywhere. Like, if I need my title and registration, I need it now. If I need my license plate, I need it now. If I need my insurance documents, I need it now. And going forward, I plan on being far more organized about having all of this stuff in a binder, like a dedicated binder, and having a folder on my phone, again, with all of these items. A lot of stuff with insurance is actually now done electronically. With my particular insurance company, there's an app, and you upload everything to the app. It's just, you upload any files, any photos. That brings me on to another point, and that is have photos of your vehicle. Have tons of photos of your vehicle. I saved every single photo of my vehicle from when I bought it. So the dealership that I bought it from had a ton of photos. I downloaded all of those. I wouldn't say I frequently took photos of my vehicle, but definitely I had some photos of my vehicle. And that's really important because when the loss adjuster is making any determinations about what state the vehicle was in before versus the state it was in after, they're going to use those photos. And I'm really happy that I was able to provide a ton of photos just showing that the inside of the cab was clean, that I didn't have a ton of heroin needles lying around, that, you know, I didn't have a ton of damage to the vehicle, that the ignition was not punched, that the steering wheel was not cut, that, you know, the doors worked fine and closed. Like, all of this stuff is stuff that, you know, the insurance company doesn't know whether it was like that before or after. It's your word against theirs, and that's not really good enough. And so I'm happy that I had photos, but it would have been more useful if they had been all organized in a single file so that I could have found this information really quickly. So yeah, tip number one, keep all your documents handy and keep all your documents in one place. Tip number two would be, don't shy away from auxiliary locks. Here's what the police said about them. They said, you know, an auxiliary lock, and by an auxiliary lock, I mean like a steering lock, a pedal lock, maybe an external lock on your doors, that kind of thing. It's not going to stop a really serious thief, but it will keep an honest thief honest. Any serious criminal with enough time on their hands is going to be able to bypass pretty much anything. I mean, that's just the way it is. But these kind of locks will slow a thief down. And it might be that they just slow the thief down enough to the point where they're like, I can't be bothered. I'm just gonna go ahead and steal something else. And honestly, that's all you can kind of hope for with a thief. In a previous life, I actually worked as a transportation planner briefly, and the department that I worked for liaised very closely with PPP's traffic division, and the particular part of traffic division that we liaised with was things like bike theft and whatnot. And so I learned a lot about bike theft, and basically the general consensus with bike theft is bikes get stolen by the gazillion every day. What you can do is just make your bike just unappealing enough that a thief is going to look at your bike, and they're going to look at the bike locked on the bike rack next door, and they're going to go, this one's way easier. I'm not going to bother with that one. I could take that one if I wanted, but this one's way easier. That's the goal. And having all these kind of layers of sort of auxiliary locks, it might just be enough. I saw a documentary a while ago on YouTube, and it was a documentary that basically interviewed former car thieves that now had turned advisors to the police. And it was really fascinating. It was terrifying, but it was fascinating, just learning about their sort of tactics and techniques. And one of the things that they all kind of repeatedly said in various ways is that most car thieves do not want to spend more than 60 seconds on your car. If they can't get in, get the vehicle out within 60 seconds, they're not going to bother. You know, car theft, as far as I'm aware, in most places, in most states here in the US, is a felony. It's a very serious crime. And thieves don't want to be, you know, they don't know if you're going to come back in 10 seconds or 10 hours. They don't know. And so their goal is really just to get in and get out as quickly as possible. So any kind of auxiliary locks that you have might just slow them down enough. It's going to take a very determined thief to get through 4 different locks, you know, and it's going to take them time. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that my particular lock that I had on the vehicle actually comes with a policy that they will refund your insurance deductible if the vehicle is stolen when the lock is on. My vehicle was stolen when the lock was on, and that again is something just to think about. If you have a lock and you've kept the paperwork and the receipts and everything, it could end up paying off down the road. So yeah, tip number 2, use auxiliary locks as an auxiliary prevention method. So tip number 3 is a tip that I did not follow, but it is to get the best darn car alarm you can afford. So many older vehicles, my own vehicle included, just do not come with car alarms. They were manufactured before car alarms were really a thing. A lot of Ford Econolines, like the E150, E250, 350, the old Dodge Ram cargo vans, obviously the Astros, you know, the Chevy Astros, etc. And don't get me started on things like, you know, the beautiful vintage Westphalias and Eurovans and Delicas and things like that from the 70s and whatnot. None of these vehicles come with car alarms, and you know, when I think about the fact that a Westphalia can easily set you back 30 grand minimum for a good Westphalia, you know, it blows my mind that people are driving these things around without alarms. Now, you know, my own van was not that expensive, but I am still kicking myself that I did not invest in an alarm. The first thing I would do, the very first thing I would do if I bought any new vehicle, when I say new, I don't mean new, I mean used new vehicle, is I would invest in the best car alarm and immobilizer that I could afford. Alarm systems are not cheap. The one that I looked into getting was going to be almost $500 for the alarm itself, plus the labor and installation cost. And that's a lot of money. That was, you know, for me, that was always a, oh, you know, I'll do that next month kind of thing. It was like, you know, I've got this other priority financially that I need to take care of, and, you know, upgrading my car's security system is just going to have to wait till next month. That was a mistake that I paid for dearly. That was a mistake that I paid for dearly, and I would urge you to not do what I did. When you buy a van, you need to have enough money set aside that day to go get an alarm fitted on it. If I'd had an alarm fitted on it, none of this would have happened. They would have smashed the window, that would have been it. They would have just ran off with like a tire pressure gauge, a map, and a bottle of hand sanitizer. You know what I mean? Now this brings me on to, what are we, point number 4? I've forgotten where we're at. I think it's point number 4. You need emergency vehicle funds. It's no good, especially for van life. It's no good saving up all your money, buying a van, and then having no money left over afterwards. And this is, it's a difficult thing to hear, but it's really, really true. I would not even entertain the notion at this point of buying another van if I didn't have money set aside for not only serious security upgrades if necessary, but also any potential towing fees. You know, I mean, I was lucky in that I was able to get my vehicle towed to a mechanic and my insurance company refunded me. But, you know, I keep coming back to the sort of the fact that, you know, what if my vehicle had been found abandoned in a field, in the middle of a forest, in the middle of nowhere? You know, some thieves had stolen it, taken it for a joyride, trashed it, left it burned out in like a field or something. And insurance had called me and said, yeah, you need to get it towed, we'll pay you back. What if it was like an $800 towing fee? Or what if I didn't have that money? What would I have done? You know, I know that we like to rely on insurance, but the way that insurance works a lot of the time is you pay out of pocket and they pay you back. And that's a really hard pill to swallow, but it's something that you really need to think about when you are owning a vehicle. You know, if you can't afford to do things like get your vehicle towed, get your vehicle repaired, whatever it might be, you maybe shouldn't be owning a vehicle. I heard someone say, I think it was a rapper actually of all people, but was it Jay-Z? Or I don't remember, but somebody once said that essentially if you can't afford to buy something twice, then you can't afford to buy it. And I think that's a good rule of thumb to live by. If you can't afford to have enough money to cover all of the inevitabilities that come with owning a car, whether that's the transmission falling out, whether that's your car getting stolen and you needing to rent another car, whether it's your car is your home and now you need to stay in a hotel or a motel, like, you know, whether it's you need to pay $800 in tow truck fees because your vehicle has been abandoned somewhere ridiculous and it's, you know, going to take 5 hours to tow it to a mechanic. You know, whatever it might be, you need to have the funds for that. What are you going to do in the interim? If you're a full-time van lifer and everything you own has been stolen, what are you going to do? Where are you going to sleep? What are you going to wear? You know, do you have a laptop? Do you have a phone? Where are all your personal documents? If they've all been in the van and they were stolen, you're going to have to get those replaced. How much is that going to cost? Just think about how much it is to get a replacement passport, a replacement driving license, and just all of the hassle that goes with that. You know, if your title and registration were in the vehicle, you're going to have to get those replaced. Like, just, you know, all this stuff. And it has really made me think about the fact that I need to be better about being prepared for this sort of thing and not kind of fly by the seat of my pants and just fingers crossed nothing bad's going to happen. The reality is bad things happen and you need to be prepared for them. And this has definitely been like a major wake-up call for me to be more prepared about these sorts of situations. So yes, make sure that you have emergency funds to deal with anything and everything that gets thrown at you related to your van. It's really important. You will thank your future self when your van gets broken into, when your van gets stolen. Trust me. So yeah, be prepared. I know I'm harping on about this and it's probably just falling on deaf ears, but I just, you know, the thing that I sort of have come back to repeatedly is I feel very lucky that I wasn't living in my vehicle, and I feel very lucky that everything I own was in an apartment and not in my van, because thinking about the particular situation that I've just been through and knowing the very little that I know about the thief or the thieves that stole my van, nothing that I owned would have been left in that van. They would have taken everything, any electronics, any paperwork. You know, they would have sold my clothes. Maybe they would have worn my clothes. I don't know. And just the feeling of violation of somebody being in your space and using your stuff and tossing your stuff or selling your stuff is just so icky. And, you know, let's not forget the fact that none of that is going to be covered by your car insurance. I mean, if you have home insurance, it might cover it depending on the situation. And I know with van life, it's a very sort of sketchy, fluid sort of situation. But, you know, my insurance company would only pay up to $200 for items that were stolen. I just physically, my heart kind of skips a beat thinking about what would have happened if the thieves had stolen a vehicle of mine that had all of that in it. It would have been I don't mean to sound like weird and consumerist, but it would have been pretty catastrophic for me financially. Anyway, moving on to the next tip. Number 5, I think. I would definitely, in addition to installing an alarm, going forward, I would install some kind of motion sensing camera. These are pretty common these days. They mount to the windshield and they record anyone outside your vehicle within a certain radius. They're motion detecting and they definitely record anything inside. I don't really know a lot about this technology, so I'm not going to go on about it. It's, you know, from a technical perspective, I have very limited knowledge of this. I can't recommend any brands. I really don't know a lot about it. All I know is that it is a thing. It's a thing that seems to be very effective, and going forward, I would definitely do that thing. The other thing that I would go ahead and do, and this sort of falls in line with that again, in the sense that it's kind of technical. I don't really know a lot about it specifically, but that is having some sort of GPS tracking device in your van. You can buy special GPS tracking devices that are very expensive and they come with a monthly fee and they're great and they're small and, you know, whatever. And they work really well. I might consider one of those, I don't really know. What I will say is, apparently I've been told you can also just take an old cell phone, but you can just have it turned on and then you can use Find My Phone. Just stash the phone somewhere and you can find your phone. And therefore find your van. You know, that's another option. You know, again, don't really know specifically too much about that. It's something that I want to look into more. But going forward, I would absolutely be implementing those 2 things for my vehicle. Okay, thing number 6, maybe, I think. If I was doing van life, I would get lock boxes for inside my vehicle to stash important documents, valuables, that kind of thing. I don't go on a ton of van life forums or anything, but I will say, just anecdotally, the number of times I hear people, they just kind of keep their laptop hanging out on the bed, you know, they just have their, I don't know, you know, cameras or whatever just in a cupboard that you could just open. And I just think to myself, you know, a thief can smash your window, be in the van in 4 seconds and be out of the van in 60 with every single electronic device you own. You know, and it's not just a question of money, it's also a question of, you know, what is on those devices? You know, you might have homework, you might have important documents, you might have video footage if you're a YouTuber. There's, you know, all these things that are pretty irreplaceable or are very, very difficult to replace. And I think about that a lot. You know, again, kind of coming back to what I was talking about earlier, how, you know, a lot of professional car thieves, their goal is they want to be in and out within 60 seconds. They don't want to be cutting locks and rifling around and doing all this stuff if they don't have to. So anything you can do to kind of have things more out of sight and just hidden, it's not going to stop the thief, but it's going to deter the thief potentially. And I mean, that's really all you can do. But going forward, any vehicle that I get next time is going to have some sort of a lock box. So yeah, lock boxes. Yes. Number 7, I think. This is something that I already did, but I am going to throw it out there for anyone else who owns a van, and that is, do not skimp on car insurance. I know, I'm not going to say a lot of people, but I know some people who just kind of get the bare minimum coverage. They're like, you know, I just need what I need in case this thing happened. You know, I mean, that's all well and good, but I think especially if you have a van that you are living in, have good insurance. You want to be absolutely sure that if the worst comes to the worst, you're covered financially. You know, car insurance for me definitely felt like a bit of a minefield. It's confusing, it's complex. I felt incredibly overwhelmed trying to figure it out. And that was just before my car got stolen. That was just signing up for it the day I bought the car. As soon as my car got stolen, then you're sort of diving into everything again, and it's just 10 times more confusing. You need to educate yourself on car insurance. You need to know what you have, what it means, what the implications are if X, Y, Z. And you know, luckily there's a gazillion resources out there for you to do that. There's articles, there's Reddit threads, there's YouTube videos. You know, there's no reason for you to not be educated about car insurance and about what you need and what is going to work for you. And my advice is, I'm not a sort of doomsayer kind of person. But I think it's important for you to picture, as a van lifer, what is the worst case scenario that could like conceivably happen to me? And then kind of work backwards from there and go, okay, well, what do I need insurance-wise to make sure that should that thing or those things happen, I am covered. The claims process was simultaneously straightforward and a complete nightmare. It was straightforward because I had adequate insurance, and at the end of the day, my insurance company paid out and everything was good. But it was also a nightmare in that, I didn't really understand the terminology. I didn't really understand the process. I was on the phone to what felt like a million different people. It was actually like 3 people. It was like the person that took my recorded statement, my claims adjuster, and my total loss adjuster. And you're talking to all these different people and they're not really communicating with each other, and it's very confusing. And I think had I done my homework more before this theft happened, I would have just been more prepared for the process of, what do you need to do when your car gets stolen? What information do you need to provide? And what is the process? What is the timeline? All of this stuff. I definitely did not have like a clear picture in my head of what that was going to involve. And it just added this whole other layer of immense stress to what was already an extremely stressful situation. The analogy that I think I would make is it's kind of like, when you buy snow chains for your car, right? And you can either practice putting the snow chains on in the sun, in the dry, on your driveway, and you can just do that again and again and again until you've gotten it. Or you can wait until you're in a blizzard up a mountain with your car rolling backwards and sliding on ice and your hands are numb, and that's when you're trying to put them on for the first time and realizing, I don't know how to do this, and now I'm screwed. And I definitely feel that way about car insurance. I think it's really important to educate yourself so that when the worst happens, you're prepared. You know exactly who to call and what to happen and what the process is going to be like and how much money you need to have up front and how much you don't need to have up front and what the timeline is and just what documentation you need and just all of this stuff. So that just the whole claims process just goes by a lot easier. Other things, I would definitely consider getting a kill switch installed. Again, don't know a whole lot about these technically, but I know that they are becoming increasingly common. It's just a switch that you flick. You can have it hidden somewhere in your vehicle, and if the thief tries to hotwire the car, it won't start. Honestly, couldn't even begin to tell you any more than that. Like, I'm not an electronic-y, techy, mechanic-y person, but it's a thing, it's available, you can get someone to do it, and your car will not move. There's another thing called, I'm probably butchering this, like an Obd Reader Protection thing. I know, if I could explain it in layman's terms, I would. Essentially, it's a cover that goes over I think it's called the OBD. It's the thing that you plug things into, and it's usually underneath the ignition. And apparently there are ways that thieves can bypass stuff and steal your car using this. And so you can actually buy these metal lock boxes that fit over that, and again, it's just another layer of protection. Now, again, like with everything, I haven't done a ton of research into this, but it's something I'm very actively considering. And the last thing that I'm considering is smash-proof window glass. Now, 3M, I think, is a brand that makes this. There's probably other brands out there, but it's like a window film, and if someone tries to smash the car, they can't get through the glass. Now, that means that someone can't get in, it also means that you can't get out. And so that's why I'm kind of weighing that up, and I'm not totally sure. But one of the things that I can't help thinking about, and hindsight is always 20/20, as we know, but if I'd had smash-proof window glass on my car, would any of this have happened? I mean, really, would any of this have happened? The thieves took something, a chisel, a hammer, I don't know, and smashed my window. If I'd had smash-proof glass on my window, I don't know, would they have found another way to get in, or would they have just given up and gone for another car? Who can say? I mean, there's just so many unknowns, and I think that's the frustrating thing. But, there's a chance that maybe they would have smashed it, realized that it wasn't going to smash, it was just not going to happen, and they might have just walked off and found another car. I mean, there's plenty of them, and so smash-proof glass is the other thing that I would consider. So those are my tips, and I have one more tip for you, and that is essentially, don't stress. I know everything I've said in this video is all about how stressed I've been, but really don't stress. my biggest fear as far as owning a vehicle has always been it getting stolen or it getting broken into. And any and all of my friends, if you spoke to them, would tell you that. I'm kind of a glass half empty person, and I wish I wasn't, but I am. I can be quite cynical. I don't have a lot of faith in humanity. I think there's a lot of really terrible people out there. And unfortunately, having nice things, whether that be a car or a bike or a house or whatever, comes with risks. There's other people out there who want them and just will take them through illegal means. And, you know, I'm living proof of that. It happened to me only 2 weeks ago. You know, I've never been worried about somebody attacking me. You know, as somebody that has like traveled extensively in my van and done a lot of road trips with my van, I've never been worried about that side of things. And I think, you know, talking to a lot of females, and I understand completely, you know, I've been attacked, I've been sexually assaulted before, I get it, but for some reason that's just never been at the front of my mind as far as like #1 concerns about van life. And the thing that has always been my #1 concern is when I get back to the trailhead after hiking for a day or mountain biking for the day, is my van still going to be there? Is the glass going to be smashed? And every time I come back to a trailhead, I'm coming down the mountain and I can see my van in the distance at the trailhead. And I'm getting closer and closer. I'm always looking like, is there going to be smashed glass on the floor? Is the van even going to be there? You know, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it has always been my biggest fear, and lo and behold, it came true. But with that being said, again, as I think I mentioned earlier, I've been kind of calm about the whole situation, and it's kind of surprised some people that know me. And you know, my thought process is, I mean, it is what it is. It happened. There's nothing I can do about it. And there's really no point in stressing out unnecessarily about it. There's really no point. It's not going to help anything. You know, me being stressed that insurance isn't going to pay out, or the police aren't going to catch the thief, or the van isn't going to show up, or this or that. I mean, at some point you just have to let it go, and, you know, without sounding all cheesy, just kind of let the universe do its thing. You know, that sounds cheesy. But, you know, you have to have a positive mindset in the end and just roll with the punches. You know, what happened happened. My van got stolen. All I can really do going forward is learn from the experience. Stressing is not going to alter the outcome one little bit. This wouldn't be a good YouTube video without a couple of cheesy quotes, and so I'm going to give you 2. First one is, I never fail. I either succeed or I learn. And I think that's a really good quote to live by. You know, when something god-awful happens, I mean, all you can do is learn from it. And I have learned from this. I know now going forward that I'm gonna have this on my new car and this on my new car, and I'm gonna do this differently. Another one of my heroes was a rocket scientist named Robert Goddard. Robert Goddard is famous because he invented the world's first ever liquid-fueled rocket. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but without this particular invention, modern spaceflight as we know it would simply not exist. I mean, his contributions to science were huge, huge, huge. And yet, when he was alive, he kind of was seen as a failure. He was widely mocked in science circles. His experiments routinely failed. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of experiments that he did just completely failed. He had all these rocket prototypes that just complete failures. And, you know, he was widely mocked because of this. But his attitude and his mindset was one of growth and one of openness. And this is why he's my hero. It's not because he invented X. It was his mindset and the road that he took to get to inventing X. And he flat out refused to label any of his experiments as outright failures. Instead, he referred to them and reframed them as, and I quote, valuable negative information. And I just love that so freaking much. I love it. You know, that's definitely how I've chosen to view this particular situation, and how I think going forward I need to view a lot of situations. Everything that happens can be logged as a data point. You know, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and this is the data, and here's moving forward what I'm gonna do with that data. My van got stolen, thieves totaled it, my insurance paid out, I'm gonna get a new van. Those are the facts. And going forward, any new vehicle that I now purchase is gonna have X, Y, and Z added to it to make sure that this doesn't happen anymore. So yeah, This is an extremely long video. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I hope that you had a cup of tea and some biscuits to get you through it. You know, the bottom line is, if you, like me, have a van that's older, just save up a little bit, make some upgrades, learn from my mistakes, and going forward, you're gonna just hopefully not encounter the sort of horrific situation that I've had to encounter and deal with this past month. And it really has been, between dealing with the police, insurance, district attorneys, you know, courthouses, grand juries, tow truck companies, you know, wrecking yards, parting out lots, you know, mechanic shops, just everything. And then just the fact that I don't have a car. I mean, I have to take the train everywhere right now, which during the middle of a pandemic, working in a hospital is not ideal. You know, it's been a process. It's been a very exhausting process. And if I can prevent anyone else from having to go through this, especially someone who, for whatever reason, you know, whether it be financial or just curiosity or adventure or all of those things or none of those things, you know, might be living in a vehicle, a van, etc. You know, if I can save you from having to go through what I have been through, I would like to do that. So take what you will from this video, and good luck on your van life adventures. Thanks for watching.